And today I'm going to be talking about tech sales interview prep and the best interview tips to help you have a little less stress on those interviews. Coming up. What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Tech Bag Trey. Like I said, today I'm talking about tech sales interview tips. And this was a topic that people were asking me about, asking me to talk about it, asking me what I did and all these things. So I'm like, let me just talk about it here. That way I can link back to it and help others when they have this question. So I'm just gonna tell you from my experience and what I did, and hopefully that can kind of help you some kind of way as well. All right, so let's get into it. Let's start from the very beginning. In an interview, you're selling yourself on why you're the best candidate. Now, the thing that makes this process different is you're selling yourself to get in a job in sales. So that makes it a little bit different, but not really. And the reason I say that is more than likely, you're probably going to be interviewing with a person who has done what you're trying to do at a higher level, or is doing it right now at a higher level. So it's like, that's a little pressure right there. But they understand that, and so they're not like trying to take your head off. They're trying to get good people. And then if you have a good person, then you can kind of mold and help them grow into a great tech sales individual, or whatever role you're trying to go out for, BDR, SDR as well. And basically what I'm getting at is you don't really have to be super nervous that you're trying to sell yourself to someone who's in sales. But what that does mean is that you can't really fake the funk. So they'll probably be able to see if you're trying to finesse them and you don't have the, any kind of knowledge on anything. They'll probably be able to see through that a lot easier, because that's what they do for a living, is read people, verbal cues, nonverbal cues, all these things. Just don't try to finesse. So just be honest, and everything will work out the way it should and it's supposed to work out. With that being said, let's jump into number one, the tech sales interview process. So in my experience, most of these companies that I interviewed with, they have 3-round interviews in the tech sales space. So, that's 3 rounds of sparring with Mike Tyson, all right? You're gonna have to go through it a few times if you're gonna make it in this league. So with that, the first interview is going to be with the recruiter. Most of the time, these interviews are done over the phone, and they're just asking basic questions. They're telling you the info on the role and like salary ranges and things like that. They're also trying to see if you have any questions as well, right? So they're like the baseline entry into that company and that job, what it has to offer. Do you have any questions about this? This is what you're actually going to be doing. They're just trying to make sure you know all this information. And then they're also going to ask you a few questions, nothing super hard, but just to make sure that it is good for them to go ahead and pass you on to the next round of interviews. So these interviews are super light. From my experience, all the recruiters were super nice, and they were just trying to make sure that you know what you're getting into at this particular company in this particular role. And that brings us to the second round interview. All right, you made it past the first one. Round number 2 is more than likely going to be with your direct manager, like the person that's directly over you. So in this interview, in my experience, they're just trying to get more detailed and to like who you are, and more detail into like your background and the things that you've done in the past as well, in your work history, why you want to work with them, and really just testing the waters to kind of see if you're a flight risk. All right. And what I mean by that is like, it costs companies a lot of money to do onboarding, and they don't need someone who's gonna come in and only be there for 2 months, and they just spent all this money invested into you and getting you prepared and getting you ramped up to be able to work, and then you're boom, gone right at the drop of a hat. That's a waste of time and resources for them. So they're really testing that out, filling you out, making sure like, hey, you're gonna be in this for a while. And so after that, and you made it to round 3, man, you're close to being in there, all right? So round 3 interview is either gonna be a panel interview, and sometimes your round 2 interview can be a panel interview if they're trying to go ahead and get it done and get you in there. But round 3 is going to be with your boss's boss, all right? So the manager over the whole department, that's probably who you're gonna be interviewing with, and they're gonna be asking you kind of the same questions that you got in that second round interview, right? But what they're looking for is pretty much consistency in your story. Just from their point of view, are you a good candidate? Are you a real culture fit for that company? That's the biggest thing. Not just the company, but the direct department, right? That protect who comes in to the company. You know, you want to make sure you don't have a lot of negativity coming in or, you know, anything like that. They want to make sure you're a culture fit with the team. And then also if you can grow there. So that's kind of been my experience when interviewing with these companies, what that interview process looks like. With that being said, let's get to these tips to help you kind of do better on these interviews and get a lot more offers to kind of choose from to see which one you want, right? Because that's what this is all about. You don't want to go in there starving and begging.
Is that the one?
I hope so.
Okay.
You know, crust all on the side of your lips. Please let me in. No. This is to see if you are a good fit for them, but also are they a good fit for you? So make sure that you're going into these interviews with that kind of lens. Now, not cocky, not arrogant. That's not what I'm talking about. It's assured, it's confident, and it's knowing, hey, this is what I'd like to get into, so this is kind of what I'm looking for. So let's get to it. So first, I like to say, only talk about relevant history here, okay? And what I mean is, when they ask you a question like, so tell me about yourself. What I did is not waste time talking about my whole life story, right? I'm not saying hey, when I was, 2 years old, I lived in the country, part of Texas, and then I moved to Fort Worth, and in high school, I was the captain of the baseball team, and at the end, I ended up getting voted most likely to succeed, best dressed, cutest couple, best smile, and I got married at 21, and I love comedies, and blah, 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 blah. That's too much. All right, they're looking for specific answers to why you're a great candidate for this role that you're applying for. So you don't want to get into the weeds on these type of questions. You want to make sure you're staying focused on the task at hand, and that's getting this tech sales job. So on a question like that, you probably want to tailor your answer to your job history and the specific things that go with that job that you did that can translate into the job you're trying to get. So a quick example on maybe a portion of your job history is hey, for 3 years, I worked in the Best Buy mobile department, and I was responsible for helping bring in over 40% of the sales that help us hit our yearly goal. And then you move on to the next job. So it's those specific things that help say, oh, okay, that's awesome. And a little quick tip here, maybe when you're thinking about those answers for that kind of question, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but I think it goes well here, is think about, hey, did I help bring the company in money, or did I help save the company money? If you stick in there and kind of plug and play your numbers or the things that you did, you should be good to go on something like that. So the next thing, like I mentioned before, you're going for a sales role. So that means you're gonna have to sell yourself in these interviews. That's great practice for what's to come. And if you're thinking about I don't have any experience, it doesn't really matter if you haven't had any experience in this specific role. You're really selling them on what's possible if you get the role. So think about it like this. Most companies are looking for people that they can kind of mold into greatness, because sometimes it's really hard to kind of teach someone to do it the company's way when they've been doing something for a lot of years and this is the way they've always done it. It's harder to teach that person than the person that said, hey, I don't have a lot of experience in this specific tech job, but I'm very teachable and I'm willing to learn exactly how y'all do things here so that I can be great in this job. That's a different conversation, and people love that, right? It kind of goes back to that saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's not that you can't, it's just they don't want to learn. So, let them know that you take constructive criticism well. Because remember, in jobs like this, they really want you to succeed. Like, they care about what you do because a lot of the times their bonuses and things are attached to your success, right? That's how we keep everyone accountable. So they really want you to do great at your job. So they're going to try and give you everything you need to do. So be able to take constructive criticism well, and that you don't take offense easy. That's a big plus. And then you kind of want to focus on letting them know how coachable you're going to be. I always said my goal was to remain being willing to learn and to remain coachable. A lot of times this says a lot without saying a lot. All right, so now I've made it to the section. I want to talk about some interview confidence builders. And these are things that if you do them, it will help you have higher confidence inside of the interview, which means you should be able to have a better interview as well. So that being said, number one, know about the company before you show up, right? You don't want to go into this interview. Sometimes you might have to go in. Sometimes you're going to be on a Zoom call. You got to know about the company. You don't want to just be showing up like, hey, I don't know what y'all do. I don't know. And I'm just want a job. Would you hire you talking like that? Probably not. So it doesn't take a lot of brain power to memorize quickly who the company serves, what the company does, who the CEO is, and when they were established. It doesn't take a lot to know that, but if it comes up and you're able to speak that off the top of your brain, it looks a lot better than the last candidate they had that when they asked, hey, what do you know about the company? You look better than them. All right, next one. Know your own work history. And I know that sounds like duh, but I mean, sometimes if it's been a long time, I know for me, it had been 8 years since I actually looked at my resume or tried to do any kind of interviewing. So I knew that if I didn't go back and kind of skim through some of my work history and kind of remember things that happened, that I would be in that interview so it says here that you worked at such and such. What was your experience there like? And I'd be like, this, that, instead of coming off as, hey, yes, I did work here. I did do this. And also this happened here. Knowing your stuff, okay, this guy really did this. It's kind of reassuring knowing that you actually did this. So now when I'm calling for references, I'm not trying to see yo, did he even actually work here? It's actually, calling to see what they have to say about you. So yeah, just do that. Know your work history. Next. So know some things about tech sales, as in, knowing some of the tools they use, what a sales cadence is, what's a customer persona, what does the sales cycle look like? And the reason you want to know these things is so that you can kind of weave little bitty tidbits throughout the conversation, and it makes you look good. Again, these are all things that it's a value add. Wow, they know about the sales cycle, and you can keep on pushing. It's not something that they have to harp on. They know, your stuff, or you are kind of knowledgeable in a little bit. They can just kind of polish up that diamond and really make you shine, and you'll have success here. Also, if you don't know much about the tech terms that I just used, or the sales cycle and tech sales, all these things, but you want to learn more, check out CourseCareers. It's the easiest way to help you break in the tech industry without breaking the bank. It will show you everything you need to know as far as IT or as far as tech sales, and can help you even get experience if you need it. Click the first link in the description box if you want to learn more about that, and they'll give you $50 off if you use the discount code Trey50 at checkout. Hopefully that helps you out. And lastly, remember, an interview is really nothing more than a conversation. and you've been having conversations your whole life. So if they ask you a question, have a light question to ask them after you answer, right? You're just a nice banter, a nice conversation, just like you're talking with your friends or a stranger in the elevator, well, maybe not the elevator. Who talks in the elevator? That's wild. But you know what I mean. You've been having conversations forever. This is nothing more than that. There is something on the line, but it's not that bad, right? So make it a conversation because it is. All right, so real quick, I did want to kind of give you some top interview questions that are asked in a tech sales interview. And hopefully these can help you kind of nail your answers down for them and know kind of what to look at or study for. So that being said, number one, tell me about yourself. I talked about this earlier. Remember, you know what to do. All right. Next, what do you think the day-to-day for SDR, BDR would be like? So they're trying to see, like, do you even know what an SDR is? Like, do you know what y'all do? The recruiter told you, but do you even remember, or do you already know? So make sure you know that. What do you know about our company? They're going to ask you that. All right. Make sure you know some things. It looks better. Why do you want to work here? What do you think are the most important characteristics of a SDR or BDR? And then more than likely in the third round interview, they're going to possibly ask you to cold call them talking about their product. So it's not necessarily that they're trying to grill you on what you know right now. And if you don't do good on this question, you're out of there. But how do you handle your nerves? Because that's a wild thing to do right there on the spot, which probably it will not be on the spot. The times that I did have to do that in an interview, they told me after the second round interview that I would be having to do that. So I had time to prepare multiple days. So you will as well. But they need to see, like, hey, where is your baseline at? Can we help develop and cultivate this person into where we need them to be? So it's nothing serious, but you want to take it serious and do your best. So a lot of times, hey, they've asked you, why do you want to work there? But then also they probably will double back and ask you, why do you want to work in sales in general? And on this last one, I'll go ahead and tell you my answer for that one is, hey, I personally believe that tech sales is the lifeblood of the company, and I love being on that side of the business. I'm a competitor. I grew up playing sports, so I love to win, and it does help knowing that, hey, I'm a direct impact player on this company, at this company, by being on this sales team and knowing, like, hey, the deals that we make, the money that we bring in directly helps and impacts other key players and other co-workers on this team by helping, make money for their salary. So in a question like that I answered it that way, it shows, hey, I'm a competitor. I actually am a team player because I understand, hey, I'm doing this for the customers. I'm doing this for me, but also to help my co-workers. It shows you got some grit to you, right? And also you're not afraid of challenge. So just come up with your answer or whatever, but just know those are some questions that are probably going to pop up. And hopefully by giving them to you now, you'll have time to cultivate your answer and really nail those answers and get that job. So with that being said, remember, it's always high thinking, strong faith, simple living, smart work. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.